Since the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes movie has released recently in theaters, I thought it would be a fine and appropriate time to discuss the book and the movie that came from that book in a very particular context, that being the Shakespearean inspirations of the book. Now, The Hunger Games has taken a lot of inspiration from Shakespeare in the past, particularly Shakespeare's Roman plays. But the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is probably the most overt in how it draws from one specific Shakespearean play, that being the play Coriolanus. Now, the superficial relevance of Shakespeare's play is obvious. Coriolanus is the name of our villain in The Hunger Games and the protagonist of A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Coriolanus Snow, or Corio, as those who like him say. There are other direct references as well, such as Voluminia Gaul, great name, in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is a reference to Voluminia, Coriolanus' mother in the Shakespeare play, who is the one always instructing him and pushing him and fueling his ambitions, even to the extent of overwhelming him and obliterating his basic sense of self. But the parallels go much deeper. And yet, I would not say The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a direct reflection of the ideas Shakespeare is talking about. It comes at those ideas from a different way. It deals with a lot of the same concepts. So many of the same concepts, I might add, that it does seem very intentional. But it comes at those concepts a bit obliquely, and demonstrates the other side of the dynamics that Shakespeare's play is really contemplating. Coriolanus Snow became one of my favorite characters in the Hunger Games franchise, largely because of the movies. In the books, he's fine. He's this calculating, manipulative villain who understands how to use spectacle and public display to increase his power and prevent uprisings against him. He is extremely savvy about visuals, about appearances and propaganda. But he only really came alive to me as a character because of the movies, where he is played by Donald Sutherland. I genuinely believe, and I say this as an ardent movie aficionado, that Sutherland deserved a supporting actor nomination for his role. He is by far the best actor in those films. He turns what could have been a rather unimportant character, a rather perfunctory villain role, into something much more intriguing. His Snow is commanding, intimidating, yet also desperate and resigned. There's something deeply melancholy about this character. He has achieved what he desired, to maintain his unceasing grip on power and to destroy those who opposed him over the course of decades. But he's growing old. He is dying slowly. Whether or not Katniss succeeds is relevant to his legacy, because she challenges the system he upholds, but he is going to die either way, and he is a bit contemplative about his legacy. He's not regretful necessarily, but he's also not overjoyed at his triumph. He understands how deeply fragile the system is that he built, that it requires a lot of intellect and a lot of manipulation and a lot of awareness of spectacle and appearances and pageantry to maintain the capital's grip on power. Thus, Sutherland plays Snow as equal parts forceful and resigned, domineering and imperious, a bit arrogant, and yet also surprisingly quiet at times and reflective. It's a great performance, and it really made me want to know a lot more about Snow, which is what the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes provides. This is the kind of book that would be very easy to do wrong. It would be very easy to either A, go the route of, oh, he was always evil, he was always cartoonishly cruel and bitter and resentful, and he demonstrated no kindness or mercy toward anyone. Or do the exact opposite and make him deeply sympathetic and have him only become villainous because of tragic events that happened in his past. Collins as a writer is not particularly brilliant. She's not Tolstoy. She's not Shakespeare. But as a storyteller, she understands how to work these themes and characters. As a character writer, I would say her work is constantly strong and significantly above, vastly above, the glut of terrible YA books and their accompanying films that followed in the wake of the Hunger Games. Looking at you, Divergent. The book is, in essence, quite simple. There are a lot of very complicated plots and shenanigans, most of which are maintained in the movie, not all of which are particularly helpful, and the book can be a bit labyrinthine and a bit cluttered, but emotionally and psychologically, which is what matters, there is this almost fabulous simplicity to it. Snow is not this vile, mouth-foaming villain. He is the scion of a once powerful family that has fallen on poverty and precarity in the aftermath of the war. He knows what it is like to starve and to suffer. He has privileges and opportunities that people from the districts do not have. But he is aware of how tenuous those privileges can be, how much of a disadvantage he is at relative to others. He knows how important it is to maintain appearances. He knows how important it is to display oneself in a particular light for personal benefit. And he fundamentally has a series of choices throughout the book about whether to do what is right or to do what is profitable and practically beneficial to him. He is given two very close and tender relationships. The first is with Sejanus, Plinth. The other kids make fun of Sejanus because he's from the districts at the school Snow goes to. But Snow doesn't. Snow treats him with respect and apparent kindness, simply because he doesn't see the benefit of doing otherwise, and as a result, Sejanus becomes ardently committed to Snow and Snow's cause. A similar relationship happens with Lucy Gray Baird, the tribute he is given to Mentor. In his relationship toward Lucy Gray, Snow is a bit more overtly self-interested. He originally sides with her only because it is beneficial to his practical ambitions to keep her alive and win her the Hunger Games. And he also falls passionately in love with her, although it is a very possessive and controlling kind of love. He resents her, and he resents Sejanus. They treat him with kindness and sweetness. To them, he is this moral and just person. And they're not idiots to think of him in this light. He has materially benefited their lives. He has treated them better than the other people in their lives have. He treated them better than he had to. And at times, Snow is capable of appreciating and reciprocating the tenderness they demonstrate toward him. Lucy Gray falls deeply in love with him, and Collins is smart enough to write the scenarios and situations so that when she thinks about the two of them having a life together, it doesn't seem completely ludicrous. Lucy Gray and Sejanus are in a way fools. They do not know what Snow really thinks of them. They do not have access to his inner monologue in the same way we do in the book, a inner monologue filled with withering contempt. But at the same time, they are correct to see that he does have the capacity to be good and decent and helpful. He is not a wholly cold-hearted person. He is capable of mercy. He is capable of deep and tender feelings. But when those feelings conflict with his ambitions, he continuously chooses his ambitions. He is calculating and ultimately utilitarian. It's not that he's a total monster, that he's a psychopath, that human connections don't mean anything to him. If that were the case, he would be a very simple character. It's rather the case that those connections simply don't mean as much to him as what he prizes. That being making sure that the ignominious reality he experienced early in life, this Hobbesian war of all against all, never troubles him again. That he regains the authority and power that his family once held, and then some, consolidating his grasp on power and ultimately becoming the authoritarian dictator of this world. What does all this have to do with Shakespeare? Well, quite a lot, actually. Coriolanus in Shakespeare is, in a way, the exact opposite of Coriolanus Snow. He is a very pre-modern character in a world that is more complicated and more diffuse and does not have patience or consideration for his very direct, almost animalistic sense of nobility and honor. If Coriolanus Snow is a character whom others think of much better than he deserves, at least in Songbirds and Snakes, Coriolanus in Shakespeare is a character who is conceived of as being a much better person than his reputation suggests. He is a fearsome warrior. He is dutiful. He is committed. He has this unebbing, never fading sense of sacrifice to the goodness of Rome. His virtues are not those that we appreciate in a modern world. They are not the virtues of kindness and tolerance, of building a community and caring for the well-being of others. But they are virtues nonetheless. They are about serving his country, serving Rome, and above all, serving an ideal of Rome. The ideal of a people bound together by honor, by self-sacrifice, by a commitment to the common good over the individual welfare. He loathes the people around him because he does not see that same kind of commitment in them. Like Coriolanus Snow, he has this deep and cutting contempt for the common people. He views them as fools and rubes. He views them as unworthy and shallow, as completely incapable of doing anything but fulfilling their own immediate desires. If I had to guess why Coriolanus Snow is named after the original Coriolanus, I would say it is primarily because of this shared loathing of democracy, of the common people, of the intellect and willpower of the average citizen. But because Coriolanus, despite being loathed by his countrymen, who can sense this contempt he has for them, even though he is despised, he is a kind of noble character. He cares deeply about Rome, about his home, and only abandons it once it abandons him. He is an individual who desires to protect Rome from invaders, but ultimately does not have a place in that peaceful Rome. A line can be drawn from Coriolanus to works like The Seven Samurai by Kurosawa, or a lot of westerns that have a similar structure, where the savior of the town, the preserver of order, is ultimately an outsider. The people will not accept him. They ultimately prioritize their own selfish and egotistical passions over the virtue of the town, or the virtue of Rome in the case of Coriolanus, and so incite the contempt of the hero, in this case being Coriolanus. He despises the people of Rome because he has this deeper sense of virtue. That doesn't make him a good person, but it does make him at least somewhat sympathetic. Coriolanus Snow is the exact opposite, in that he sees what he perceives of as the foolishness and the naive optimism of the people, as an opportunity. His time observing people, both in the capital and the districts, and he is, for all his faults, a very keen and acute observer, teaches him the value of spectacle, the value of pageantry, and he takes advantage of people's susceptibility to pageantry to fulfill his own understandable but still selfish desires. He does this to Sejanus and Lucy Gray, whom he gets to view him in a much more favorable light than he really deserves. And on a greater scale, he does this for the Hunger Games themselves, which he transforms from this rather grotesque and nakedly brutal slaughter of children into this very refined, glamorous, ritualistic event. He understands how people think. He understands the importance of appearances. He is very much a creature of that modern world, that world of sophistication and pageantry, where what seems is as important as what is. And in that, he both reflects and subverts Shakespeare's Coriolanus, who is so disgusted with the need for people in Rome to conceal their true feelings and appeal to the sense of pageantry and spectacle and performance that he ultimately scorns Rome altogether. They both get what they want in the end. Coriolanus in Shakespeare suffers a tremendous practical defeat and eventually dies, but at least he dies honestly and sincerely, in good faith and on his own terms, being true to himself. Coriolanus Snow finally achieves all the power and influence of the world, all the power and influence that one could possibly want, and yet he does that by becoming nakedly dishonest and betraying the few people who expressed genuine sweetness and tenderness toward him. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. I just thought this was a fascinating comparison to make, so go and read Coriolanus, the Shakespeare play, if you haven't. It's one of my favorites. Tune in soon for the next analysis. It will be coming soon. I promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.